Holy smokes, what a Sunday night football game. I'm not going to lie to you boys and maybe some girls, some women supporting the brand, supporting the channel. That game was a sweater for me, as going in to that game, I was up a mere 5 points, full PPR fantasy championship. My opponent had Scary Terry McLaurin, 1 catch, 5 yards, crowned the motherfucking champ. Now, the reason you guys actually clicked on the video. What a game. What a fucking game. I think that this game really solidified that both teams here have bright futures. Washington's currently just looks a little bit brighter. Jayden Daniels, you know, in terms of MVP ballots, when we start writing them down, and we're going to have a conversation about this on Wednesday, Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, that's your clear 1-2. You have Jayden Daniels at 3. I don't hate that. You know, you could argue Daniels, Goff, Darnold. But if you have Daniels there, I don't hate it. Rookie of the year? No doubt about it. Jayden Daniels is in such control. And the great quarterbacks have this in them, where they feel like a great point guard. They control everything on the field. You know it. The opposing team knows it. And the game is almost in slow motion for them. Cam Ward coming out of Miami has this factor. It's why I really like him in this draft. And he was the quarterback I'd take 1 overall. But Jayden Daniels has that same factor. And was absolutely phenomenal tonight. By far the best player on the field. And when we start evaluating quarterback rankings going into next year, we'll be top 10. And when we start talking about MVPs in the future, this guy's going to have multiple. And when we start talking about teams competing in the NFC East, it's probably going to be Philly, Washington for the next half decade. And, you know, Jayden, greatest rookie rushing season ever, passing RG3. Obviously, we know Lamar didn't play his full rookie year, so obviously there's some things to that, but you can't deny it. Jayden Daniels tonight, 227 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, a 100 passer rating, 127 rushing yards on the ground. Team on the back said, I'm going to take you to the playoffs. And you have to respect it. And if you're a Washington Commanders, Redskins, whatever you want to fucking call yourself fan, the change in ownership, front office, coaching staff, quarterback, 67% of the roster turned over this offseason, a whole front office and a whole coaching staff. I thought that was going to be a lot. I thought they'd be successful in the long run. I didn't think we were going to see nearly this success this year. And this is an 11-12 win team going into the playoffs. You know, everybody talks about the AFC being loaded. The 8-8 Bengals are alive for the 7th spot in the AFC playoffs. The Washington Commanders have 11 wins and are likely to be the 7th seed in the NFC playoffs. It's a great team. And it's headed by a really great quarterback who will find his name on MVP ballots. I don't think he wins the award, but he'll be on MVP ballots. Let's take a look at some of the stats here. So Washington wins this game, like I mentioned, 30-24. Daniels puts on an absolute show, an absolute clinic in this game. Alamani Zaccheaus really stepped up. AJ Terrell, I mean, you know, one of the premier corners in this league, shut down Terry McLaurin. To my happiness, yes, but Alamani Zaccheaus, 8 for 85 and 1. Zach Ertz, man. Zach Ertz, it feels like, you know, just yesterday, the guy was catching touchdowns in the Super Bowl for the Eagles. Here we are, 7 years later, 6 for 72, 2 touchdowns, the game winner in overtime. How about that drive in overtime? How about the whole second half? Washington fucking controlled this game. Right after halftime, Washington controlled this whole game. I want to look at the team stats up here. I mean, time of possession, 41-25. Obviously, overtime's included in there, but 16 additional minutes. By the way, look at the penalties. Like, Atlanta had every which way to win this game. And we're going to talk about their horrific clock management at the end of regulation that led to Washington winning this game. Raheem Morris not calling a timeout, a borderline fireable offense. The penalties were against Washington, and they committed them. I'm not going to say that they didn't commit them. They definitely, I thought, were fairly called for the most part. There was one holding call that I thought was a little ridiculous, but you look at the stats here, 29-23 on the terms of first downs. The total yards are close, passing's close, but they just dominated time of possession. And if you're going to be a good team in the NFL, obviously, one, having a great offense is a good way to get there, but two, being able to keep the other team's offense off the field by sustaining long, lengthy drives is a great formula for victory. And after a little hiccup, Cliff Kingsbury's offense is looking good again the past couple weeks. Jayden Daniels is looking very efficient again. There was a little hiccup in this season, and I do think that hiccup is the reason that Jayden isn't in MVP conversations with Lamar and with Josh Allen, and then obviously team record goes into things. You kind of have to win your division to be the MVP, but this was an outstanding showing of the talent that Jayden Daniels is. And again, I haven't made the list yet. We're going to do it in the offseason. There's fucking hair in my face somewhere. But when we get to quarterback evaluation rankings, I'd be shocked if Jayden Daniels doesn't fall in my top 10 and a lot of other people's top 10. And well deserved. This guy took this game over. His number one wide receiver, who his offense essentially only has one wide receiver, lockdown, out of the game, can't use him. His number one running back, I think dealing with a little bit of an injury, wasn't out there a ton. His RB2, Austin Eckler, injured. His top target is a guy who was a wide receiver 4 in the Eagles last year and a cut candidate. And Zach Ertz, who's about 36, 37 years old at the tight end position, maybe. Maybe I'm aging him a bit, but just a hell of a masterclass by Jayden Daniels. And now he leads the Commanders into the playoffs. Probably going to face off against the Eagles. Should be a really, really fun matchup. Atlanta. We'll start with the bad. Raheem Morris, what are you doing at the end of that game? That was a disaster class. You get the ball with 40 seconds, 2 timeouts. Penix, a laser, down the sideline, close to the 50-yard line. I believe your own 45. You're running 35 yards on the field. You're not going to have to do that again on another play. And if you do, you have another timeout. That is an auto timeout. I'm yelling at my screen, timeout, timeout, timeout. You were probably doing the same thing. What the hell is that clock management? That was an abject disaster. Just a disaster in coaching there. And then your second string kicker now, because Koo is on the IR, has to kick a 56-yard game winner. He comes up short. Maybe with that additional time, that 56-yarder could have been a 46-yarder. And then you win the game. And then your playoff chances, if they had won tonight, was 79%. And they blew it. And now with the way that Baker's throwing the ball right now, the Bucks blood in the water, they're going to get in. Washington's going to get in. The Rams are locked up in, and Atlanta's going to be on the outside looking in. And it really might come down to not using a timeout there. That cost them their season. Now, I will say, if you're a Falcons fan, there's plenty to look forward to from what we've seen from Penix. For starters, I think he looked better in this game than the last one. He had a bad pick early on. That was just a clear miscommunication, though. Maybe it's on Penix. You probably assume it's on Penix, rookie quarterback, second game in, but you never know. Could have been a miscommunication with the receiver. But, on the receiver's end, excuse me. But you don't know. But that's a mental thing. That can easily be cleared up. That wasn't a skill throw issue. And Penix showed you tonight, he can get a good ball in there. That touchdown to Kyle Pitts, that was one of the nastier passes I've seen this year. Situation, 4th and 11, zips that fucking thing in there. Tightest of tight spiral. 100 miles an hour fastball. Pitts hauls it in. And then, of course, we got overtime. The way that their offense is just not predictable anymore. With Kirk, it was just with the Achilles injury and his limited mobility, you kind of just felt like you knew what they were doing a lot of the time. Bijan, the holes are opening up for him. Bijan's a mini Saquon, the way he moves. He's the closest thing we have to Saquon Barkley in the league. And you give it 2-3 years, Bijan Robinson's the best running back in football. 17 for 90, 2 touchdowns, 5.3 a carry. Guy was great. Drake London, a legit wide receiver 1. And they have some other options. The defense been playing better, especially now that they're not out there as much. That pass rush is starting to figure some things out. AJ Terrell's one of the better corners in football. You have a really great safety duo with Bates and Simmons. So a lot to look forward to if you're a Falcons fan. I'm not sold on Raheem Morris. I doubt they move off of him just 1 year into it, though. And if they'd had Penix all year, they're probably a playoff team, if we're being honest. If they had this guy at quarterback all year, they probably get in. So it's one of those things where, kind of like the Broncos did, you got to eat your medicine. You paid a vet quarterback too much money, wasn't in his prime anymore, and you had drafted and have a better, younger option. And the way that the Broncos took their medicine and then made the playoffs in that same year, I think the Falcons could take their medicine next year and win the NFC South. I think it's on the board. So while it's a brutal loss, and there's certainly some things to point out that need to be better for the Falcons, I think they're at least trending in the right direction. And for Washington, man, how could you not be excited? With this fucking guy at quarterback, like, there's only so many quarterbacks in the league where you could look at it and go, yeah, we're going to be a Super Bowl contender. The Washington Commanders have a guy like that in Jayden Daniels. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What'd you think of the game? We'll be back up here tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Week 17 reactions. And then, of course, Tuesday tier list. And then Wednesday, I want to talk about Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson on the new year. Who is the NFL MVP? All right. I will catch you guys next time. If you love the NFL and you're not subscribed, hit that button. Peace.